Hi, I'm Emmanuel and welcome back to our ISO 27001 series. Today we are diving into Annex A 5.14, Information Transfer. Now, what is information transfer? Information transfer just talks about how data moves inside and outside of our organization. I know you might be thinking, how complicated can transferring information really be? But consider an email, messaging app, or external storage devices, and even paper documents. And yes, fax machines also. There's a lot to cover to keep data secure in every channel. Let's break it down. Every transfer method carries its own risk. But what does the standard really say? Now, ISO 27001 Annex A 5.14 requires organizations to be able to establish rules, procedures, and agreements for all sort of information transfer, both internally and with third parties like vendors, suppliers, and customers. The goal is to protect information from unauthorized access, modification, distraction, and interception. Does that sound familiar? Yes, we're talking about the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. To get this right, you need a clear information classification scheme, which we covered in our previous class. Once you have classified your data, you need to define the transfer rules based on those classification levels. And so when we are talking about classification, we are saying that how do you sort your data by their sensitivity. Now, there are key steps for securing information transfer. Key number one, you need to establish your policies and procedures. That is documenting how your information can be transferred, have an approved method of transferring those information, cover all the transfer types that could happen, whether it's electronically, whether it's physically, whether it's verbally, and making sure that you're writing policies to be able to back it. Now, number two, to implement appropriate security controls. Now, we have encryption for sensitive emails and files. So if you are implementing controls, you know that you need to be able to encrypt any data that is sensitive. You need to secure packages and track for physical media. Like you're sending a mail to someone, you want to track it. Why? Because you want to make sure that you know the state of the package that you are delivering. And so you also want to do the same thing. Then you also want to make sure that you are putting in strong authentication, where people that we are giving them access into our environment, we are getting the right accesses and the right information, or the information that they have the right permission to be able to access. The third thing is ensuring traceability and accountability. Now, you need to keep your audit log for electronic transfer. You need to use courier receipt and delivery of confirmations for physical shipments that you are doing. Then you need to be able to assign somebody to be in charge of all these things that you are doing. The fourth one is to be able to consider legal and regulatory requirements. If you are talking about privacy, GDPR is there. You need to make sure GDPR, you have HIPAA. You need to make sure that you are following those industry regulations and internal policies. Then the last one is training of your employees and monitoring compliance. Educate your staff. It will go a long way to be able to help you on how they should handle the data, and regularly check the gaps that are within your policy and do an update on it. Now, let's talk about the transfer methods. Electronic transfers. Electronic transfer is where we are talking about the encryption. So you think about it. When you are sending an instant message to someone, how do we make sure that that message is encrypted, or that message is protected, that no one else receives that message, and that message goes to that specific person and not someone else? And that is electronic transfers. Now, the second one is the physical transfers, paper and storage media. How are we sending information? Are we using a pen drive? Are we using a hard disk? What are we using, and what are some of the methods that we are using? Then the third one has to do with the verbal transfers, where you are conducting meetings, you are doing voicemails, and avoiding discussion of sensitive information in public spaces. Yes, you might have gone on a lunch, but you don't have to discuss those information at the public. Why? Because you don't know who is listening. And those are some of the things that you need to make sure that you have. Now, what are some of the common pitfalls to avoid? Overly restrictive policy. If your rules are too strict, people will find workarounds. And so you need to make sure that you have a balance. Scripture says that false balance is an abomination. So you need to have a good balance, and a balanced security with usability. Then you have lack of training. Now, policies fail if the employees are not well trained. So you need to be able to make sure that you explain the real world consequences of not being in compliance with your organization and or the employees in your organization, for them to have a better understanding. Then the third one is poor documentation. Auditors always need proof. So you need to keep track of everything that you are doing so that when they come, it's easier. You store your documentation in a centralized management system. And there's a lot of them now where you can be able to do that. And the final thought that we need to wrap our head around before we end this session is that you remember that information transfer security is about the protecting of your data while you are keeping your organization or the business in a smooth operation. So you need to be able to implement practical policies. You need to be able to educate your team, document everything that they are doing to make sure that there's minimal distraction. And I'm sure that you'll be able to help your company pass the ISO audit that is coming out. Thanks for joining. If you find this helpful, like, subscribe, or drop a comment below, and see you in the next tutorial.